My name is Larry Smith, and I'm retired from Jacksonville State University. And I spend a lot of my time doing research on the history of our area, which is jam-packed with all kinds of interesting stories. One of the stories that is actually tragic is the removal of Native Americans from their homeland from this area in 1838. Forced removal of Native Americans began actually as early as the 1820s, when several thousand Creeks were removed from South Alabama following the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in 1815. Andrew Jackson came through our area in October of 1813 on his way down to fight the Creeks. And while he was here, he recruited a number of local Cherokees to go with him and fight the Creeks. Once he defeated the Creeks at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, he gained national prominence after he defeated the British in New Orleans in 1815. Once he gained national prominence, he ran for president and was elected in 1829. After he was elected, he convinced Congress to pass the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This set in motion plans to remove remaining Native Americans from their homeland. Then on December 29, 1835, the Treaty of New Echota, Georgia was passed. This caused the remaining Cherokees and other Native Americans to remove to the west in what is now Oklahoma and Arkansas. John Ross was principal chief of the Cherokees during this period, and he was convinced that the Treaty of New Echota was a fraud, which it was, because it was signed by a number of minor Cherokee chiefs and not passed by the National Council. So he convinced the Cherokees living in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama to ignore the treaty. But the treaty was upheld, and subsequently federal and state troops were sent into our area and forcibly removed the remaining Native Americans. Cherokees to be removed were divided into districts. 17 different detachments were created in groups of about 1,000 each. And the John Beans detachment consisted of Cherokees from northeast Alabama, including a lot of Cherokees from our area. Cherokees were taken to a holding area north of the river at a place called Camp Morrow, and members of the John Gunner family were held there, including Samuel Gunner, the oldest son of John Gunner. And also, unfortunately, Samuel Gunner died while being held. One of the reasons a lot of the Cherokees died in the holding camps was because they were confined into small areas and the food was terrible. So in late September of 1828, the John Beans detachment left near present Lebanon in DeKalb County and headed toward Gunner's Landing. When they reached Gunner's Landing a few days later, they crossed the Tennessee River on Edward Gunner's Ferry. From there, they passed through the states of Tennessee, Kentucky, Southern Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, and then they arrived at what is now Oklahoma. It took them about 100 days to make the trip, which began in September and ended in January. John Gunner, who came to our area about 1785, died in 1835, and so he was not involved in the removal. The cost per member of the Beans detachment was $81 a person for the 106 days that they were on the trail. And when removal concluded, Congress thought that much too much money had been spent on removing the Cherokees, so that called for an investigation, and hearings were held with various people involved in the removal. And from this, though, we have learned a lot of valuable information about the removal.